Welcome to the first video of 2022, or for those of you who would rather use the numerically correct way of referring to it, 2022. And in this video, I am going to be discussing with you all an underrated part of the Chainsaw Man story, something which whenever discussion about what is good or even what is bad about Chainsaw Man gets completely ignored. And it is something which without the story wouldn't function, and we would be left without Chainsaw Man at all. By now, if you have read the title, then you know what I am talking about. That being, of course, the fact that Chainsaw Man's power system is underrated, as, if you'll excuse the pun, hell. No one seems to want to discuss it, other than giving it a brief overview, or simplifying it down to devils get stronger when people fear them, when there is so much more to it than that which I am going to talk about in this video. I'm going to break down the fundamental parts which makes it up, explain how they interact with one another, and how this all comes together to form the bedrock of not only Chainsaw Man's power system but its very world building. But before I get into that, it's a new year, meaning new goals. I wasn't quite able to reach the milestone I set for myself last year of reaching 500 subscribers, but this year I am determined. Together we are going for 700 subscribers before the end of this year. So if you want to be in one of the best places for Chainsaw Man content on YouTube, then subscribe and ring the notification bell to keep up to date with my content. But with enough shilling myself, let's get on with the actual video topic. And to completely go against what I was saying before about people reducing Chainsaw Man's power system down to people's fear making devils as well as making them stronger, that is a key part of the formula for Chainsaw Man's power system. The fear of human in particular seemed to be the source from which devils are born, and that which they draw a significant portion of strength from. Despite this most basic of principles, it is deceptively complex, for fears are not constant and people's fears change throughout their lives. At a young age people tend not to fear things because they are ignorant, whereas older people tend not to fear things that younger people might because of their experiences and knowledge, like the monster under the bed for instance. This means that a devil's power is in a constant state of fluctuation. It is also wise to note that a fear need not be constant to be powerful. For instance, the fear of darkness is one which is not something that is at the forefront of our minds in daily life, and we do not often fear the darkness itself but what might be within it when confronted by darkness, yet it is a primal fear rooted in our earliest evolution, that the darkness is a bad thing, that it is something to be feared because of what lies within it. But that connection between the darkness hiding things which are scary and the darkness itself being scary is lost on us on a subconscious level, as consciously we know why we are afraid of the dark but unconsciously we fear it regardless. And within a world such as Chainsaw Man, those unconscious fears, ones written into our genetics which consciously we don't recognize, are very power indeed, with the darkness devil even being considered one of the primal devils. As while not confirmed, it might be that primal devils are those devils born from the fears which exist subconsciously within the minds of humans and presumable most animals, those which stimulate a fight or flight reaction without any conscious input. Of course, all I have spoken about so far is fear being used to empower a specific devil. However, fear also plays a part in empowering devils in a generic term. For instance, the generic fear of devils seems to increase the power of all devils. This is why the devil hunter organizations is still interested in dealing with those devils which are either weak or not interested in dealing with humans at all. If a devil was to cause a huge incident, word would undoubtedly carry around about not only the specific devil but about devils in general, which could allow even devils who originally wouldn't be a significant threat, for instance the tomato devil, to become significantly more powerful depending upon fear of devils. Also, fear is something which, much like a certain infectious disease, is known to spread rapidly and mutate aggressively within a population, so a fear of something as simple as that of a tomato could grow and mutate until it becomes a fear far more potent than it would ever have been initially, as facts become distorted, as rumors begin to spread, and in a world like Chainsaw Man, where fears become reality. The fear that tomatoes could explode like a grenade could very well become a possibility if enough people get suckered into the fear-mongering. So the public devil hunters must keep even the weakest of devils down, lest they manage to become a serious threat, no matter how unlikely it might be. Of course, with fear being capable of ballooning up, it can also drastically drop to the point almost no one even accepts that they happened anymore. The lack of toilet paper is a recent event that comes to mind. If you're in UK or anywhere else that had this problem during the lockdown period, you know what I mean. So of course, when facts come to light, disproving something, the fear of the people mellows out. However, in a world like Chainsaw Man, this is much harder to do because once again fears become a reality in Chainsaw Man, and while the exact requirements for either a devil getting a new ability or creating a whole new devil aren't yet revealed, we know that devils are capable of unlocking new abilities depending on the right circumstances, and also that devils themselves have the ability to warp reality to varying degrees. So, gaining facts to disprove something, which formerly wasn't an issue, suddenly becomes a lot harder when a devil is enforcing that as now a fundamental truth. And so, you begin the battle of what was once fact becoming misinformation and misinformation becoming factual. We see this being used to the opposite effect in the final part of Chainsaw Man's story thus far, with Makima using false information with regard to Chainsaw Man and his actions, to push this idea of Denji being a hero onto the public, which in turn weakens Chainsaw Man, as he is no longer a monster in the eyes of the people, which essentially becomes factual as he is no longer as powerful as he once was. This means by the power of the news, Twitter, and other public and private media platforms fear-mongering, in the Chainsaw Man world they could very well bring about the end of humanity as we know it. It should also be noted that Chainsaw Man does have one more thing that fear influences in regard to the power system, and that is the age of the devil. You might not really think that age has anything to do with the devil's power, but you would be oh so wrong. Since we know that the Darkness Devil is an ancient devil which has never experienced death, we also know that it has accumulated an absurd amount of fear over the however long it has existed. Of course that might not make you immediately consider its age, but think back to what I said before. Fear in Chainsaw Man becomes a reality, and the older a devil is, the older the fear of that which it represents means that the longer that devil has had to screw with fundamental laws of the Chainsaw Man world. For instance, darkness in the world of Chainsaw Man might very well have the potential of being a one-way portal to hell. It might also just teach you or have a multitude of other messed up things mixed into it because of its advanced age. The older a fear is, the more twisted and contorted the devil will be until it eventually no longer even appears the same as when it was first created. Also, fear of things such as abstract concepts like eternity, also fundamentally are some of the most ancient devils, even if they came into existence relatively recently, because once again reality bends to the fears of the people. So a devil which was though up yesterday, but the fear suggests it always existed, and enough people believe it, presumable means that reality will bend itself in such a way that said devil has always existed, even if it completely alters the way reality should have worked up until that point. Chainsaw Man's reality is basically held together by rotting meat at this point. Now that is everything about Chainsaw Man's power system, which strictly relates to fear. Now moving on to the next fundamental part of the Chainsaw Man power system, and that it's something which I think, above all else, goes ignored within the community, and that is perception. Now I can already guess what you're going to say: perception and fear aren't so different, perception only affects the way in which a fear grows, but I would disagree with that statement. For instance, perception of something doesn't require that you be afraid of it, and in some cases actively changes a devil to be less frightening. For instance, we have Angel, who as far as the name would suggest is a devil representing the fear of angels, yet despite that Angel doesn't look anything like many of the more extreme or otherwise inhuman depictions of angels which exist in certain religious texts. Rather, Angel seems to appear like a more stereotypical depiction of an angel in the modern day, which I would put down to the perception of people and how the perception of angels has changed with time, or more specifically how the perception of how an angel should look has changed within the collective unconsciousness of humanity. Perception seems to have less of a direct influence on the individual strength of a devil, but rather their outwards appearance. Even ignoring Angel, we have Makima, the control devil. It has often been stated that it is easier to get someone to do what you want when you provide them with a reward or when you are in some way physically attractive, so of course Makima, which represents the fear of control, appears like an attractive young woman, a human woman at that, meaning that she is far easier for her to manipulate and control those who are around her. Perception also plays a role in particular devil power sets, in a similar vein to how fear does. For instance, there are many different variations of zombies which exist within media, and while some of them may be comedic in nature or in some cases even friendly, that gets tied into the perception of the devil in question, which can result in severe changes to the devil in question. Something which is perceived as being comedic, even if it is something that some people are genuinely afraid of, will have the effect of making that devil in question comedic or granting them comedic abilities, because devils are affected by the way in which people believe in them. Take the tomato devil for instance. If people started to fear that tomatoes might start demanding human rights after watching something silly like Sausage Party, then the tomato devil would play into that because it's become a part of who the devil is. There is of course the fact that perception also can see people's options divided. For instance, in Western cultures dragons are often evil creatures which are brought low by brave knives, whereas in Eastern cultures, they can be benevolent and wise creatures providing aid and wisdom to those who need it most. This culture clash can result in devils which could exemplify both aspects or result in a splinter devil where the fear of Western and Eastern dragons creates two separate devils. All I'm saying is that perception is very important, and having a unified one is also very important to making sure a devil doesn't become split. Moving on to the final fundamental part of the Chainsaw Man power system, and that is contracts, agreements between humans and devils or hybrids and devils. If the agreement between Denji and Power really was a contract, contracts hold a lot more importance in determining the strength of a devil than people give it credit for. Contracts have the capacity for allowing devils to achieve feats that they otherwise have no business being capable of doing, for instance the future devil being capable of living within Aki's eye, which has nothing to do with the fear of the future or its basic physicality. Or perhaps more generically is the ability to simple teleport devils around in response to the wielder of the contracts will seen with the Fox Devil, as well as Ghost and Punishment, which both straight up appear from thin air at the request or command of the person they have made a contract with. Of course, contracts aren't just so that devils might achieve the impossible, they also serve the purpose of granting a devil strength. As we saw with the Gun Devil, even when only a percentage of its body was in the possession of the president, by offering up a year off the American people's life, the Gun Devil was capable of demonstrating immense power, suggesting either that the life force of the humans is what gives it strength or the contract to kill Makima was what gave it strength. The payment was just required to seal the deal and officiate the contract. This part of the power system is the most diverse because the terms of the contract seem to be capable of almost anything if the correct price is paid. For instance, Santa was capable of gaining a portion of the Darkness Devil's flesh in exchange for Chainsaw, which effectively granted them immortality while within the darkness. Or what we saw with Aki's sword, which was capable of summoning the Cursed Devil if he was to stab an individual enough times. This means that the versatility of a devil hunter could be effectively endless provided they can continue to make and pay for their contracts, although we have seen that eventually you can run out of things to pay the contract with, as seen with Kishibe, meaning that you are effectively locked out of a considerable portion of your abilities. What I like about this part of the power system is that it best serves those with a silver tongue, a knack for battering and a skilled wordsmith, meaning that the strongest human devil hunters aren't always going to be those with the strongest devils as their contracts, but those who have the best contracts with the devils they have. If you want to hear more about contracts, I have an entire video on them that you can check out on my channel. But otherwise, this is where the video comes to an end. Thank you for watching up to this point if you did in fact make it this far. If this video took your interest, why not check out one of my other ones, and if you're not already subscribed, then feel free to do so and ring the notification bell to keep up to date with when I put out more Chainsaw Man content in the future. I've been the Anonymous Weeb, and I wish you a good day or night wherever you may be.